Greetings, this is Tariq X with National Network View. On tonight's show, NNV Weekly contributor Nina Shabazz will discuss her interview with Cleo Johnson, a Black millennial who traveled to Zambia, Africa. Later in the show, Doshon Farad will talk about the escalating Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the children who are the latest victims of Israeli aggression. Lastly, Sibeko Jywanza with Flanner House will discuss how Flanner House, Flanner Farm, and Cleo's Bodega are providing the Northside of Indianapolis community with food access. Before we delve into the top news, let's do a recap on the current events that we've covered this week. On yesterday's show, Tamu Asir, Martin Bay, and Kiara Adams with Compton Community Garden discussed how herbal gardens are positively impacting and strengthening the community.
Now, since your last visit with us, you've been selling at the market. Can you tell us what varieties are in high demand at this time?
Yeah, right now at the market, we're still selling a lot of squash, a lot of kale, and lettuce, especially with this heat. And we also have a lot of mint as well. Those have been doing really great. And we have an edible flower called nasturtium, which is has a nice spice to it.
Tell us more about that edible flower. What is it that that you do with an edible flower? Is it something that can go on cakes, or is it something that you can put on salads? What would you use that in? What dishes would you use that in?
Well, you can saute it with greens. You can put the flowers as nice garnishes as well as the actual orange flower.
It's beautiful. It also has a little spice to it. So if you want to add, nice color, and then also get like a little hint of, a kick, it's the perfect flower to use.
Mm-hmm.
Josiah Muhammad discussed Next Generation Project, a nonprofit education and mentoring program for Black boys.
You service a number of needs, and you mentioned some of those needs already. One of the things that I took a look at, and of course I went to your website, was the fact that you have an educational program. What qualifications need to be met in order to take advantage of this program?
It varies. A case point example for like George Washington Carver, those students were selected. But at the same time, as the program evolved throughout the school year, students were added in. As far as what requirements they look at more per se, they do look at risk youth. They do look at, even though you're not at risk, some students that are exceeding well in school, but they are lacking in vision. So we help out with those as well. And yeah, it varies.
NNV Weekly contributor Dr. Akili discussed the state of mental health in America during the COVID-19 pandemic.
What are the statistics saying about the state of mental health in America?
Wow, they actually are saying some very negative things. We've had an increase in just about every aspect of mental health issues in this country. We're talking about depression, anxiety, drug use, suicide, domestic violence, murder, a lot of cases of police being called for disputes that has significantly increased during this pandemic, which is tied to the overwhelming nature that this pandemic has had on the public. There are, of course, aspects of the society which we know are failing. And there are aspects of this society that are so demonic and so full of debauchery that the people in general are not satisfied.
Netfa Freeman with Black Alliance for Peace discussed the Pan-African Community Action, or PACA plan.
What are your views on the International Commission of Inquiry's recent panel on systemic racist police violence?
Mm-hmm. Well, we concur with the findings. The finding of this commission was that this is tantamount to crimes against humanity, and that the finding was that the United States, the police departments, which I think we might have a little issue there in terms of how we get redressed, but police departments need to become under investigations of the International Criminal Court, which we don't disagree that there's a lot of egregious things police departments do. It's just a matter of how we look at getting redressed and how that is. We believe that it's the collective humanity, the collective masses organized and making the most the challenges, demands that directly address our condition is really what's needed. I think these bodies, while it's very good and it exposes things and gives us political education around and gives us rallying points for campaigns, I don't know how much power they would have to actually, enforce anything.
Darius Martin with the Man Up program shares how the program is connecting with the Black youth, exposing youth to positive role models and teaching life skills and strategies for success.
Now, what are some other topics that you cover in your mentorship program? I know you said we're working to give them a different idea of what a Black man is supposed to do and be. What are some of the other things that you might touch on with these young men?
Well, knowledge itself is number one. And sometimes that entails a lot of things. So some of the 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old boys that's in the group, we teach them how to keep their pants up, how to iron their pants, how to look men in the eye when they're shaking their hands, how to open the doors for their mother. We're going all the way back to the basics with the young brothers. This has been missing in their household. This has been missing in their community. They don't identify with it. And some of the older teenage boys, we teach them how drugs became available to us and how they can take that same energy that they put into that, put it into anything that you can do for self. You don't have to just be on these streets.
NNV News anchor Willie Muhammad spoke with Eric Muhammad and Quran X about the International Olympic Committee's ruling to ban certain apparel from being worn during the Olympic ceremonies and its potential impact.
So what are your thoughts about the IOC's decision to ban any apparel being worn during the ceremonies and on the podium?
We find out that the IOC has a committee of over 103 members. And out of the 103 members, there are also an additional 45 honorary members. But going further, there are 2 members above the honorary status, and they're called honored members. One of those members, we find out, is a name that's very familiar to us, Henry Kissinger. So the question becomes, what is the mindset that's behind this whole entire international organization? For those who don't remember, Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State. It was the Nixon administration. And so he wrote what was called then the NSSM 200 report. And in this, it identified the third world countries and the growing population within these third world countries as the #1 enemy to national security here in America.
Our guests, Eric Muhammad and Quran X, discuss individual acts of violence against religious groups and anti-Semitism.
Why do you think that there's still this image of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as being anti-Semitic and the Nation of Islam would be in favor of such acts like that when you know we are not?
Well, dear brother, it's the same forces that went against Jesus of the Gospels in his day. Jesus, the son of Mary, the master teacher. When he walked the highways and the byways, healing the people and teaching the people, there were those who they were called or styled as scribes in the Bible. And they would say all manner of evil against Jesus. Jesus would heal the people and they would say, well, he did it by the power of Beelzebub, or he did it by the power of the devil, or, they would say all manner of evil against him, that none of it was true. And he was a man who dedicated his life and literally gave his life to the point of death and suffering for the people. So we see a mirror of this in this modern time in the man that we so love as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Eric Muhammad and Quran X also discussed legislation to ban schools from teaching critical race theory, which recognizes that systemic racism is part of American society.
Should critical race theory be included as part of the educational curriculum in America?
Well, first of all, what are we talking about when we say critical race theory? Right? It's a social construct. It was developed. The term was coined by a legal scholar named Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term CRT. Right, and she notes, or he notes, that it is a noun. It is not a noun, but a verb. Right. It critiques how social construct of race and institutionalized racism perpetuates a racial caste system that regulates people of color to the bottom of the tiers. So that's one aspect of it, right? So we can agree with that, because if I want to teach Yakub history, that is history. And as the governor stated, that is knowledge, teaching you where you come from. Now, if you feel a certain way about yourself after that, then that's on you.
On I Have a Testimony, student minister Troy Muhammad of Detroit's Mosque No. 1 shared his phenomenal testimony and how the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan transformed his life.
Were other inmates there who were watching the minister on Donahue, were they also impacted? Were they end up joining, or was just you, as far as your recollection?
Oh no, it wasn't just me. It was many joined on that day. Many joined on that day. And the thing about prison is that his words allowed us to set a new tone with our life, man. To be 200, 300 miles from home, locked in a cell, man, and trying to find some definition of what your life is going to be. Because you're sitting in there. We were at a prison that they call Gladiator School, where everybody in there was 17 and up, but they had over 20 years to do. So it was like a hopeless environment. But the minister's words and his representation gave men who had no hope. Gave men who had no plan, the idea that they could have a plan.
NNV News anchor Robert Muhammad spoke with our NNV Weekly contributor Charles Muhammad about how to eat to live and the best vegetables to eat.
And what does How to Eat to Live say which fruits and vegetables we should eat?
Yes, sir. Well, right within the first 5 or 6 pages of How to Eat to Live, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that virtually all fruit is good to eat. And then he says virtually all vegetables are good to eat. Then he begins to list the no-nos of vegetables that are not good for us. Namely, peas, beans, except for the small white navy bean, potatoes, soybean, corn, rice, nuts, and even greens. So trying to explain this to a person who wants to become vegetarian, when we say, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says be vegetarian, but there's certain vegetables you can't eat. You need to take the time to explain why those certain vegetables are not good to eat.
Robert Muhammad's guest on Al Asir Report was student minister Daryl Muhammad, who discussed the surge of overdose deaths during the pandemic.
What are your thoughts on the recent opioid crisis and how it has risen during the pandemic?
Yes, well, when I first was given this assignment, I was very shocked at the number of overdose deaths that has occurred during this pandemic. And what it has shown to me is that, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has just spoken in the video, that we are now living in the end time and we're in the shock of the hour. And the people now have no clues, no ideas of what to do. And so their minds are stressed. They have no answer. They have no one to counsel them as these things intensify. So in order to escape the pain of the pestilence of coronavirus, people, in order to escape their pain now, are turning more and more to drugs, and the isolation of the coronavirus pandemic, when we were all isolated, only added to that problem.
Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. When we return, NNV Weekly contributor Nina Shabazz will discuss an interview she did with Kayla Johnson. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Kayla Johnson, a Black millennial, recently traveled to Zambia, Africa, to experience the motherland, the Zambian people, and their rich culture and food. Joining us is NNV contributor Nina Shabazz to share her interview. Greetings,
Good
sis.
evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Kareem.
So I thought this would be a good segment since we're gearing up for vacation. I thought it would be a really nice segue into talk about some of the vacation plans that some of our people, millennials, and that sort of thing are having. And so I thought it would be a really good opportunity to send my niece, Kayla Johnson, to live abroad. And so because there's something I think that, we should all experience, even if it's, 2 or 3 months, we should take that experience to live abroad. And so, so some of the things that I was asking her, having gone abroad for her first time, what was her first impression of Africa, mainly Zambia, when she arrived? And this is her thoughts here.
My name is Kayla Johnson, and this is my first time staying abroad and visiting Africa. And my first impressions upon arrival were, as soon as I exited the airport, I could tell that nature was a continuous feature of most established locations, and that there is a lot of respect for nature. And the ride from the airport showed us how expansive Zambia is in Africa as a whole. There's just so much untouched land still, and how much is still being developed to modern standards, like highways and freeways and stuff like that. But overall, so beautiful. I love being surrounded by nature and breathing fresh air, so I just felt really comforted by the fact that there weren't tall buildings or factories pumping out, emissions. So it was nice to be able to just step out and feel just surrounded by nature, which I love and which I wanted.
That's amazing. I definitely have to say, her what's the word I'm looking for? Her emphasis on the respect for nature that Zambia has is very important because, you know, a lot of times we don't take in consideration of the fact of how much of a positive effect that nature can have on us as a, you know, as an individual human being. And because I know even whenever I went to Seattle one time, you know, just with all the trees, like the air there is different, way different than it is from Texas. It's much more crisp, it's much more clean. And even when I go back home to Bermuda, sometimes like just the sun feels different. You know, just being around all the trees, hearing the natural animals that are there, you know, making their sounds, being able to see trees with fruit producing trees on just a random corner that you could just grab a fresh fruit off the tree and really taste the freshness of a fruit, besides it being imported and you getting it from the store. So, you know, I definitely can I can definitely, you know, feel her on that feeling with being surrounded by that nature and just really becoming at peace with herself.
Right. I mean, it's funny that you should mention fruit and that sort of thing because, you know, I was asking her what are some of the foods that you know, she's a big foodie like I am. And so I was asking her, like, how are you finding the foods? What kind of cuisine, you know, are you able to get over there besides some of the local cuisine? And so she, this is what she said.
So the food and cuisine I've tried so far, I've realized that Zambia has very simple meals inspired by many different cultures. So it kind of depends on your preference and like what are the places you're going to. There's fresh produce all over the place. There are people selling tomatoes and avocado down almost every road. So if you're vegan or vegetarian and enjoy cooking, there's a lot of inexpensive produce available all around. Another thing I noticed is that all of the foods and drinks are not high in sodium and sugar like, you know, Americans are used to. So most of the foods are pretty mild, and until you ask for like peri-peri, pepper, spice, hot sauce, whatever you call it. But that's if you like your food spicy. So once you find your preference, the food's good, and you know what to ask for and how to jazz it up the way you like. But pretty simple meals for the most part. One of the main staples of Zambian food is called nchima, and it's kind of similar to fufu, but not the texture. It's more like a thick, like grits, thicker, and you can like pick up the rest of your meal with it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Ryan?
Trial 1. This is lumanda, traditional dish for Zambians.
How is it? It's good?
It's actually good. It tastes kind of like spinach with literally ground nuts. Like they got nuts from the ground.
What kind of nuts? Peanuts?
Like peanuts, yeah.
Ooh, cashew.
It's not warm though.
It's not warm?
Yeah, it tastes like room temperature.
Let me taste.
Wow, that sounds mighty interesting as far as the food goes, because one thing I've noticed, and she kind of confirmed this, was the similarity between foods all around the world and how they're very similar as far as having a bread, a dish that contains a meat and a vegetable or like a grain, and then also some type of like not salad, but like a soup. Like it's something. Sometimes it's like always in a stew type of form, like a spice. That's the word I'm looking for. A very distinct spice. And then how all across the world there's a similar way that we eat. That's vastly different from the way that America structures their food, where we get hamburgers and pizza and French fries over here. And so, because in the same, just going back to Bermuda, you know, we eat a lot of rice, curries, breads, and things of that nature, and spices as well, as what she was mentioning about adding the hot chili peppers to the food as well.
Yeah, right. No, definitely. And I think other cultures have a little bit more balance in their palate. Americans are very carb laden. You know, you mentioned pizza, hamburgers, all of that's bread and carbs. You know, hamburger, French fries, all of those are heavy carb meals. The other thing too that she mentioned was what to expect for the accommodations. And so, you know, I told her, you know, go ahead and give us a tour of what people can expect in terms of accommodations. I mean, there are hotels, there are Airbnbs, but this is what she showed us in terms of the accommodations.
Fantastic.
So what are my accommodations like, and what others can expect? Well, that kind of depends. I've been staying on a compound with next level development. For those who don't know what a compound is, it's basically just a large piece of land with 2 or more houses on it within walls. So that's what we're at right now. So far, I've enjoyed this experience. It's kind of nice to like be able to select or know your neighbors, and be able to like share your day or share something you've made. For example, my partner is really good at making fresh juice, so he made carrot juice, and we were able to share it with some of the others within the compound. And it's a nice feeling to be a part of a little community. Definitely something I would want in my future, and you know, not be strangers with my neighbors, or you know, have animosity because of the strangeness.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that they still work together as a community, and that there's neighborly love going on out there in Zambia. Because I know here it's not the same as it used to be. Because back then, you know, you would have you could go next door, get you a cup of sugar and whatnot. But now, you know, neighbors are very standoffish. So being able to just be able to share experiences, and like she said, to share different things that she's has accomplished with her neighbors and with those that she's there, and they're all to get in there together, and they can all help each other and possibly trust each other as well as they're living there as a community, is a beautiful experience, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and you can see some of the grounds that they're on. It's a beautiful place. It's Garden of Eden for sure. It is an oasis. You know, I don't know if she's gonna come back after this. So, you know, she's really enjoying herself, and so I think this is a really good idea to kind of, how do you encourage millennials who usually they have their first trip abroad, they choose Europe. And so, you know, I was asking her, how would you communicate to your age group or your cohort, you know, to really get them to do, you know, maybe encourage them to come to Africa as opposed to Europe. And so this is one of the things that she was telling me, how she would, you know, connect to millennials and kind of spread the word about traveling to Africa.
What would I tell someone to make Africa their first trip abroad instead of Europe, as usually, you know, college people do? The first trip they go to, you know, they're studying abroad, they go to Europe. Well, the biggest reason why I would want someone to come to Africa for their first trip abroad is money conversion. So there's a lot more you can do with the amount of money that's just already in your pocket, like not needing to save up or to, you know, hit a lick, as they say, and then go on a trip, but just, you know, use your regular income. Yeah, if you want to experience the luxury lifestyle without having to pay thousands of dollars, you'll have a blast in Africa. Specifically Zambia and many other African countries. But yeah, so like, for example, like with $50, you could like eat out every night of the week, and it'd be pretty affordable, you know, depending on your taste, how many drinks you get, or if you get appetizers and stuff like that. But you can get like a week full of meals with just $50. On the way here, we had a pretty long layover in Switzerland, and we had our meal in the airport was a grilled cheese and a large cup of tomato soup that we shared, and that alone was like almost $25. So
wow.
Right.
Affordable
So
luxury. That's beautiful.
it is. And so, you know, I look forward to some more footage that she's going to share with us. And, you know, I just want people to really start thinking about, you know, contributing, because you're contributing to the local economy as well. So when you think of your vacation plans, think Africa.
Absolutely. I'm definitely thinking Africa as well for my first trip abroad. So thank you for giving us some more information and insight on affairs that are going abroad and letting us get a firsthand experience on what it's like to travel to Africa.
You're absolutely welcome.
Thank you. You have a blessed one.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. Coming up, Doshon Farad will talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the innocent lives lost. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Children have become the latest victims of Israeli aggression as Israeli military airstrikes pummel Palestinian neighborhoods and heighten the conflict.
Retaliatory attacks, which began on Monday night, mark a significant escalation in tensions in Jerusalem. They followed a day of heavy clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Hundreds of people were injured when police fired stun grenades and tear gas at Palestinian demonstrators. Later, Israeli nationalists gathered for an annual march through Jerusalem's Old City to celebrate Israel's capture of East Jerusalem during the 1967 Six-Day War. Many Palestinians view the march as a provocation. The catalyst for the violence is Israel's plans to evict a number of Palestinian families from East Jerusalem to make room for Jewish settlers. For many, the evictions are just part of a wider trend.
It's a matter of a whole policy that has been targeting the Old City, targeting Sheikh Jarrah, targeting Silwan, and of course targeting Isawiya and other places. And they have surrounded Jerusalem with enormous settlements, trying to extricate Jerusalem from its Palestinian environment.
The international community is now calling for all sides to de-escalate.
Joining us to discuss this is Doshon Farad. Greetings, brother.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, my friend.
Oh, I'm so honored for you to be here, brother, to give us more information and insight on this topic here. A May 11, 2021 Final Call newspaper article is entitled 1 Year Old Among 29 Children Injured in Israeli Aggression. Why has Israel decided to crack down on Palestinians and carry out airstrikes at this particular time? Why is Israel hitting high-rise buildings, injuring and killing women and children in the process?
I'm sorry, brother. I thought you were reading this. You're asking me. Okay, well, Brother Tariq, it's very simple. That currently Israel has an apartheid, not like regime, but it is apartheid. And this has been the history of that criminal settler colony since its inception. We have to keep in mind that when we say, oftentimes, whenever we're discussing Israel, we have to make clear that who runs Israel, we're not saying Jewish people, we should say Ashkenazi Jewish people, European Jews, who still have the European mindset to conquer or take over anything that is non-European. So what we're witnessing is basically imperialism I should say that Israel represents American and European imperialism in the so-called Middle East.
Wow. That's interesting, because you said, we've been seeing that it's a lot of the headlines say that it's a conflict, but from what you're explaining here, it's really more so like a modern day colonialism or imperialism that's going on.
I'm sorry, Brother Tariq, you had kind of started breaking up. I think it's my connection. You had just said what, brother?
I was saying, can you hear me? Can you hear me better now?
No, it's the connection is acting shaky. I don't know why all of a sudden.
Okay, let me see here. How about now? Is it clear? Still shaky?
Still can't.
Okay. Say, I hear you fine.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
Sound like Max Headroom.
Let's see here. How about now, Keith?
No, brother.
Let's see. Is it still shaky?
Right.
Still shaky. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Well, I do apologize for the technical difficulties that's going on with the connection here. So because of that, we're just going to go ahead and go on to the next segment. Now we have our brother Sibeko Jywanza, who is going to talk to us about Flanner House. Greetings, my brother.
Hey, greetings. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
Yes, sir. So, I know it's a switch up here, and we do apologize again for that interruption. But as food insecurity increases in Black and Brown communities, Flanner House on the north side of Indianapolis is providing the community food access. So, how long has Flanner House, Flanner Farms, and Cleo's Bodega been in operation, and how did it all get started?
Yeah, so Flanner House is actually a 123-year-old organization. It started as a building block for Black people coming up from the South into Indianapolis, and they helped to establish jobs. It was one of the first daycares. Frank Flanner, who was a Quaker, donated the land and the house for Flanner House, and he looked to Booker T. Washington to help him establish what kind of method would be placed to help African Americans coming up from the South into Indianapolis. Flanner Farms has been around for about 5 years. So since 2016, Brandon Cosby took over as executive director of Flanner House. He's an educator by trade, and he turned a couple of plots of land that we had into a farm and a flower garden. So we have a 2-acre farm and a flower garden. The flower garden is in the shape of a dinka symbol, which is a Ghanaian symbol for abundance. And we also have a fruit tree orchard there. And so hopefully in the next few years, the fruit will produce some fruit, right? The fruit trees will produce some fruit. Now, Cleo's Bodega and Cafe is the next part of our segment, and it's like grocery store / cafeteria. And so we serve smoothies and food, as well as some treats that we make in our kitchen, and coffee. And the grocery store provides groceries from fresh produce coming from our farm, as well as bread, milk, eggs, things that you would get at a normal grocery store. And we call it a bodega because of the small size that we have. Our purpose is to try to replicate this model. And so we wanted to have a smaller size so that it can go into areas, particularly Black neighborhoods. And Cleo's, the name Cleo's comes from Cleo Blackburn, who was executive director of Flanner House from 1930 to about 1970. So he came up from the South and established a lot of things here in Indianapolis. So being a part of Flanner House, we wanted to make sure that history was told, and naming this Cleo's.
Absolutely, because I didn't even know you said 1930, right?
Yeah, he was there 1930 all the way to the 70s. So he stood there for about 40 years. Now,
Wow.
might have been a little too long. We want to make sure the next generation comes up, but he held strong in his determination when he was there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's beautiful that you guys have recognized the need in the community and that it has been recognized, and they have been pushing forward to help combat that need that's in the community as well. Because food insecurity is a growing threat, and many Black and brown communities across America are food deserts. Why was it important to open Flanner House, Flanner Farm, and Cleo's Bodega on the north side of Indianapolis?
Well, all those things are important, and with the three different initiatives that you just named, they were opened at different times, but it was for the same reason. It's because of the attack that's been on Black people here, because of white supremacy, because of the environment that we're in. We needed to make sure that we had a place that we could call our own. Sometimes we needed help outside of our community in order to establish that. So Flanner House was established to make sure that Black people had a way to provide for their families and to safely secure their families. Flanner Farms was established because we wanted to combat what people are calling food deserts. We use the term food apartheid because it's systematic. It's not something, desert is a very natural thing. It's not natural why our communities are not having fresh fruits and fresh vegetables to feed to their families. It is something that's on purpose, and it's a moneymaker for a lot of entities, including fast food, gas stations, and for grocery stores to be in other areas where they can make more money. And so all of these things are important. And the importance of the Cleo's Bodega, not just for the grocery store, because the grocery store serves as a conduit for you to be able to get fresh fruits and vegetables and other things that you need for your dinners and your lunches and breakfasts, snacks as well, right? But we have a space with free Wi-Fi that is a space that's safe, particularly for Black people, as we see a lot of our institutions and a lot of our stores can be scared of our presence. And so we want to make sure that in a Black community that's on the northwest side of Indianapolis, we provided a space that you can come, sit, have a meeting, and have free Wi-Fi. In our area, there's not a place like that. There's not a Starbucks in that area. We're on 24th Street. There's a Starbucks on 10th Street and then a Starbucks on 56th Street. And so you have that gap of an area, and the only place to gather would be either on your front porch or in a park. And if you're familiar with Indianapolis, it gets pretty cold during the winter times. And so we're just now breaking out of that winter time. So we needed a space where people could come and feel safe to have a meeting. And we've been welcomed. Like we've had poetry jams, weddings, places where people just come to meet and just hang out. And so that space, that safe space for Black people is so needed. And it's not just about food security, but it's about food sovereignty. It's about feeding ourselves and providing for ourselves and having the jobs that we're having for our community. Most of our staff live in the neighborhood. Most of our staff walk to work. And that's something that we wanted to do, was provide food, provide jobs, and provide a safe space for our people.
Wow. That's interesting that you say that most of the staff live in the neighborhood, because that's important, so they have a true understanding of what the neighborhood needs and how they can help the neighborhood as well. Because you mentioned food apartheid, and the north side of Indianapolis went from a food desert to a full-blown food apartheid. So how were you able to see it as an opportunity, and what are a few of the factors that have led to your success?
Some of the factors have been the engagement. We did not come up as Flanner House with the idea of providing a farm and a grocery store. This came from community meetings. Brandon Cosby, again, our executive director, sat in on meetings his first year and was really listening to what people were saying in the community. And he went off of what they were saying. We want a grocery store. The grocery store closed in 2012. That was down the street. And so there was a need for that in the neighborhood. And when people came up saying that they could do it, but beggars can't be choosy in terms of the type of food that they have, the community didn't go for that. And so Brandon decided to do it on his own. He actually created the platform for us to be able to have this. But going back in history, this whole area on the northwest side of Indianapolis, which is predominantly Black, has always molded itself up to be able to be self-sufficient. And because of things that happened throughout the city, with the highway being built right between the neighborhood, and messing up a lot of property value, and a lot of people of beings would move further north outside of the neighborhood. It left a gaping hole in the community in terms of resources and responsibility and just mentors and just the sense that, you know, things can be self-sufficient within that area. And I believe that's what we're trying to do. Flanner House is a multi-service center, and we do a multi-generational approach. So we have a preschool, we have a daycare, we have a youth development, we also have a senior room, and we work with families. Wow. So we try to do things for the entire family. So this initiative with Flanner House provides jobs as well as provides a sense of what's next. You know, like how can we build on this to make sure that this stays here for a generation, but also that we don't have to depend on anybody. Because of last year in the pandemic, we fed a lot of people. We helped to deliver a lot of food. We changed our system. We donated food, and we were able to do that because we didn't have a business as usual model. We had a very community-based model.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful that you guys are always focused on, you know, what's next, because you guys aren't getting stagnant on, you know, what you're doing right now. You're always looking forward towards ways that you can help the community. And, you know, because with Cleo's Bodega and it providing so much access to the community with groceries and foods grown from Flanner Farm. So what are a few examples of the products and healthy foods provided at Cleo's Bodega?
Yeah, so what we try to do is become a place where other businesses can flourish. So we partner with a couple of other Black businesses and entrepreneurs that are in Indianapolis to provide a place where Cleo's can expand on their capacity. For instance, Chef Oya, who owns the Trap seafood restaurant, it's a walk-up seafood restaurant, and she makes her own trap butters. She has 5 different trap butters. OG garlic. She has a jerk, curry, sweet Thai, a citrus blend that's a vegan blend. And so we use all of those, and we made sure that we created these grilled cheese sandwiches that are like gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches that mixes up these blends with different cheeses to create this. Londo's Flame-Aid, Joe Green with his turkey ribs. And on the grocery store side, you know, you can find shea butter from vendors, as well as Sister Lakaya. She has Earthly Clean, which is a cleanser, and it's a natural cleanser that she created at her home because of her children and wanting to make sure that her children were safe. And you know, she represents the Nation of Islam, and this sister right here also has a hand sanitizer. And so I wanted to make sure that products like these from individuals within our community who was making things for our community were in there. And then you can find your normal groceries. You can find your bread. You can find your green peppers and your tomatoes. We're just starting our planting season. So you'll find our produce in there. But what we're having, again, what's next? We're going to build a greenhouse this year. So fantastic. Throughout the whole year, you'll be able to get our fresh produce and we will be able to control how much food we're able to grow and where that food comes from and the nutrients, the water, the type of environment that those foods are grown in, so that we can provide our community with the healthiest options.
Wow, that is fantastic. So you mentioned a lot of amazing products there, especially whenever I'm in Indianapolis, I definitely need to come by Cleo's Bodega so I can try out some of those products myself. Because some of those butters that you mentioned sound fantastic, and that grilled cheese sandwich sounds like, because I'm a big fan.
It mixes well with some of the bean pies that we have here that comes straight from Chicago, bro. So you know, make sure you come on down there. You know, we definitely have that. I cannot believe I forgot to mention that on this broadcast. That we can definitely get you a slice there.
Yes, sir. The fantastic supreme bean pies. Yes, sir. So what other services and programs does Flanner House and Flanner Farms provide to help the community become more self-sufficient?
Well, the self-sufficiency is always ingrained in us. What we actually need is a way to navigate between this world of white supremacy. And so we have a daycare, preschool, infant to 5-year-olds, and the curriculum there is all about love. There's abundance of Black teachers that are there in that institution, and Flanner House is known for Flanner kids. Like a lot of people went to Flanner House for daycare. I mean, this is a 123-year-old institution. And there's not many 123-year-olds around. So, you know, that means that there's pretty much somebody in Indianapolis. If you know somebody in Indianapolis, they know somebody who went through Flanner House or their family went through Flanner House. And so starting with those young people and the way that we try to ingrain our farm with that is that our farm encompasses or surrounds the playground, the daycare playground. So when they come outside, they see that, as well as making sure that we have our own farm beds within the youth's playground. And so we have some strawberries in there, and I haven't seen not near strawberry because they come outside and play and they pick the strawberries and eat them, you know? So it's one of those things with the youth development. These are elementary, middle school young people who come from after school, and we pick them up. Sometimes schools dismiss at 3 o'clock. Sometimes they dismiss at 4. Sometimes they dismiss early at 1. And so we go pick them up and bring them to Flanner House or during the breaks, during spring break and winter break. So we provide that for them. And then the Center for Working Families helps with resources for families who are trying to get back on their feet or just trying to survive this navigate this world. It's rental assistance, energy assistance, resume building, job fairs. And so we have those things. And then before the pandemic, we had a room for the seniors who would come about 2 or 3 times a week, and they could socialize and engage. But what we transformed that into just making sure that we check on our elders. And so now we have someone who goes around, checks on them, calls them, makes sure they have what they need. Do they have their groceries? Do they have everything? Are their loved ones checking on them and all that? And then just being a conduit for the community. There's a community builder there that establishes a newsletter so people can get their stories out, as well as we can connect with the neighborhood associations and some of the other institutions that are around the neighborhood and start connecting on a more broader base plan of improving how the world sees us as a community, but also what we need as a community to be able to survive this crazy world.
Absolutely. Well, wow, that was fantastic. Obviously, we see Flanner House has been a beautiful and a huge impact in the community. And before we close out, let us show a nice clip of what Flanner House is pretty much all about.
Flanner House on the northwest side of Indianapolis has been a center of community empowerment for more than a century. This week, volunteers set up a new community garden at Flanner House designed to educate and connect people to the food they eat. WRTV's Cornelius Honker shows us how Flanner House has made this community garden a place for everyone.
That's just some of the work Erica Jury has been doing since Tuesday for the brand new Flanner House Food Justice Garden and Classroom.
I wanted to have one space where I could have somebody from every age group at the same time here together, all learning about growing food.
Erica was very intentional about designing the space for people of all ages and abilities in our community.
These are specifically this height, this waist high is for people where bending can be stressful for them, or people who would prefer to sit or even in a wheelchair.
Getting the space to look like this was a group effort. Many people volunteered their time throughout the week to get it done. Erica hopes having consistent monthly classes will keep the community engaged with what they're doing at Flanner House, teaching the community to grow food and maintain a connection to the land they're growing on.
Having this be a classroom and having classes, I think something like this, it helps to make time to do.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's been an honor speaking with you, brother, and we definitely want to thank you for taking the time out to come on today to our show and give us, all this beautiful information about Flanner House, because community activism like this needs to be shown a lot more, and I'm glad we're able to bring a spotlight onto Flanner House and what you guys are doing for the community in Indianapolis, sir.
Thank you very much, man. It's a pleasure. I appreciate that. And kind of like Erica's our greenhouse manager who was talking, and we're establishing that medicine garden as well as a farm where people of all disabilities and abilities and ages can help. But you saw her shirt, destroy power, not people. And the young people that were working there, those are our feed young people. Farming, education, employment, distribution, FEED. Those are 16 to 24-year-olds who work on our farm, and we pay them. and we make sure that we go through the right systems to make sure that they have a leg up. And that's what this is all about, making sure that we leave something down for the next generation.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful work, brother. And thank you again for taking the time out to come on our show today, brother. You have a blessed night.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into National Network View. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Tariq X with National Network View News.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.